You get to a point where you're burnt out, where you're overwhelmed, where you feel like I am just doing everything to keep this business running. And that if I died tomorrow, the business would fold up like a tent. What do we do about that? And how do we prevent that from happening?
So I understand what it's like to be really overwhelmed. And then it's worse when you're doing all this stuff and it's not working. And it's worse than when you were just doing one thing. I was making crazy sacrifices. Going harder was not working. And so I just started reading and studying and asking people. And the reason that I got there is because I thought
anyone who's running a business has a concept of like, well, I'm going to start hiring people. It's like a pot of water. And it's like, I'm going to work and then it's going to boil over. And as soon as it gets to boil over, I'm going to skim off the top of what is not on my plate. And I'm going to start hiring people. I'll pass on that for me personally.
I think it's really important to lead your business with a vision and with a plan. And however imperfect that plan is, what's the destination? What am I a part of? If you aren't clear on that, you'll have a very high turnover rate in your business. People don't stay on trains. They don't know where they're going.
Welcome to the Millionaire Hairstylist, where our mission is to improve the financial well-being of creative professionals. Today, another Cash and Jordan conversation. Do you ever feel overwhelmed trying to balance the creative side of your profession with the demands of running what is, whether you're a single hairstylist or a salon owner, ultimately a business? Do you ever wonder how to grow without being completely consumed by the day-to-day responsibilities that seem to completely weigh you down? Today, we're going to dive deep into the heart of this challenge. Every business owner experiences this, and we're going to talk about a simple and effective way that you can shave off, that you can stave off, that you can avoid that kind of burnout, that kind of overwhelm as you grow your business. Let's get into it. Cash, there is a point coming up on a year from now, a year ago, coming up in next month, a year ago, where you and I met together for a working session in Dallas, Texas. We were at a Starbucks, and
or a freak out session.
Don't label it before I told the story.
Oh, sorry.
No, it wasn't a freak out session because a freak out session is spontaneous. This was a building explosion. Because but this is a true story. So we were sitting in Starbucks and the meeting was, I don't know, we had it was going to be about something. It was, we were working to begin the work, let's work on the course, let's work on the business, whatever. But what I had been thinking about for like a month prior to that conversation was, I am doing this in the margins on top of a full-time career working in the film industry. Sometimes I'm on set. I mean, there have been times in the history of this business where I've been on set for 12 hours a day and then spent 2-3 hours at night working on the Millionaire Hairstylist after that 12-hour day. Everyone else is going out to dinner or going out to get drinks. And I'm like, sorry guys, I got to go back to the production office because we're working on the podcast, And so I was at a point where, which I think a lot of entrepreneurs and business owners and creative professionals find themselves in. I think you found yourself in this position where I said, Cash, I'm overwhelmed. I'm burnt out. I'm doing too much. And the concern that I had at the time was like, how is this sustainable? How are we going to grow as a business if you and I are doing everything by ourselves? If I'm doing all these things and we have all ththese goals we're setting, all these things we're trying to accomplish. And of course, like any difficult conversation in a partnership, I was like terrified to have the conversation because I just felt like, no one wants to admit like, hey, time out. And especially when, both of us are very performance oriented and no one wants to be like, it's like when you're on a run and you're running up a hill and no one wants to be the first person to be like, can we take a minute? I'm winded. Like no one wants to be the one to, to wave the white flag. But I did. And to this day, I think it's one of the most important moments in our business because it really got us thinking in this way that we talk about. It's funny how the plumber never fixes the leak under their own kitchen sink, right? We talk about the concept of who, not how in your business, how to solve problems in your business with people instead of trying to learn how to solve these problems yourself. But all that to say, Cash, I think anyone who's listening to this, who's ever tried to build a business or is a creative professional with their own service that they offer other people, you get to a point where you're burnt out, where you're overwhelmed, where you feel like I am just doing everything in this business to keep this business running. And that if I died tomorrow, the business would fold up like a tent. And Cash, I know you've been there. And I know that you've got to a place now where you are not there in your businesses. If you didn't come into work tomorrow, I mean, yesterday you were in New Orleans. I didn't even know, 2 days ago, you were in New Orleans. I didn't even know you were gone for the day. But like, it used to be when you would be gone for an extended period of time, it was like, there was like a carrier pigeon that had to arrive and like deliver me a notification a month in advance, like a medieval herald. Just so you know, Cash is going to be out of the office on this and no more because your business doesn't fall apart if you're not there. Right. So how do we get there as creative professionals? How do we get to that spot of overwhelm, and why are we getting there? And what do we do about that? And how do we prevent that from happening?
Well, I think it's going to be probably a different journey for everybody. But one thing that I've found is consistent with students and friends and peers and colleagues. I'm in several groups where I chat with entrepreneurs and really successful entrepreneurs. And I think when you look at the question of the flustered, overwhelmed entrepreneur, and that's presented to you as a problem to solve, the first thing I want to know is, how did you get here? And if we can reverse engineer that process and just look at how you got to a point where you were doing everything, then we might be able to better identify what could be done differently. And I was that entrepreneur who was doing everything. I mean, I was flying over 100 times a year serving my clients as a working hairstylist in New York and LA and Miami and everywhere. The Czech Republic. I mean, there's just no limit to the weird locations I was flying to serve my clients. And not to say that the Czech Republic's weird. They're really beautiful people. And I was also building I was trying to build, like this, when Instagram just came out, I was trying to build a personal brand. And then I was trying to build a manufacturing company and develop out its marketing, strategies. And then I started trying to invest in real estate. And oh my God, I could tell you, like I'm working 16 hours a day, sometimes 20-hour days. And because I'd have to land, and then I'd have to solve a problem, and then have to get on another flight, and there was just no time in between the flights. So I understand what it's like to be really overwhelmed. And then it's worse when you're doing all this stuff and it's not working. And it's worse than when you were just doing one thing.
Or you're not getting where you want to go, or you're not hitting your goals. Yeah, that's the hard part.
Oh, yeah. And I can't imagine doing that year after year after year after year. I mean, that's drudgery and misery to me. I think fortunately, I noticed that this was not going to work because I was not spending time with my children. I was not spending time with my wife. This was at a point where I was seeing my wife 6 times a year. So I was making crazy sacrifices that I was just no longer willing to make, given that going harder was not working. So I had to think about something. And so I started reading and studying and asking people and and the reason that I got there is because I thought I could do it all. And I think really successful people often think that. And
that you have to do it all, by the way, because it's like, well, no one's going to solve this problem but me. I got to pull myself up my bootstraps and just got to work hard. Hustle culture, baby.
Yeah. And if I don't work hard, then no one else will follow me and my employees won't respect me or whatever it is. Right. Mm-hmm. And I think I just believed a lot of terrible things that landed everything on my plate. And I think a little bit of that had to do with some arrogance. I was arrogantly believing that I was uniquely positioned to solve all these problems. Just give it to me and I can do it. I think that's arrogant. It is also a sign of a bad business leader, because a good business leader understands their strengths and weaknesses and knows how to put themselves in their lane and other people in their lanes. And so I was just making all these classic business blunders when it came to entrepreneurialism and building a business as a creative. So I thought, I have to fix this. And that's when I learned about the concept of organizational design. And so I realized my number one big mistake was that I started doing these things with zero plan or vision or clarity for how I was not going to be doing them one day. And then because I'm an opportunist, I see opportunity everywhere. It's in my personality. When you're already working 16-hour days, you are no longer free to take advantage of any opportunity, no matter how good it is. Right? You're just drowning in the shit you're in.
Yeah.
So I had to take a step back after talking with some mentors, and I learned the lesson one, that white space on your calendar is a beautiful thing. If being booked for every single second of the day leaves no room to take advantage of opportunity. So you want to have some openness in your life. And so I knew I wanted to get there. I had established clearer values. I wanted to spend time with my wife, and I wanted to be with her all the time. That's not weird. I love my wife. I work with her every single day now. We are together all the time. We don't fly without each other. And that was my dream, because for 7 years we were long distance in our marriage. And part of the reason my businesses exist and why I was working that hard is I had to find a way for us to be together. And at the time, we just couldn't afford it. So when I learned the concept of organizational design, it was a huge epiphany to me that I didn't know had been around for decades, and that this was something that was very obvious all the other businesses were doing.
Okay, but before you dive into that, I just want to point out, I think anyone has a concept. Anyone who's running a business has a concept of like, well, at a certain point, I'll hire someone. I'll hire an employee. I'll hire an assistant. I'll hire an office manager. I'll hire other stylists. I think we sort of imagine it almost like a pot of water, and it's like, I'm going to work, and then it's going to boil over, and as soon as it gets to boil over, I'm going to skim off the top of what is not on my plate, and I'm going to start hiring people.
Oh, and then it's all going to magically align, and
it's going to, but it's like, well, that's what every business goes through. We'll grow and we grow. Yeah. And you're talking about something very different, because when you say organizational design, you don't mean wait until you're overwhelmed, like I did.
That's organizational
You're talking
disaster.
about starting from day one, or as close to day one as you can possibly get, because for anyone we're talking to right now, it's not day one. Hate to break it to you, but starting at the moment in which this is obvious to you that this needs to happen, thinking about how you want this organization, how you want this business to run, and thinking about that strategically. So I just want to point out that difference. It's not just about like, this is not a fancy word for hiring people.
No,
because I think that's what everyone expects. Well, I'm going to start hiring people. It's like, no, this is not that. If you are a creative professional who wants to improve your relationship with money, go to millionairehairstylistpodcast.com, create a free student account, and you can access an entire library of educational resources geared at improving your financial well-being, including a lesson on the 3 phases of wealth building for creative professionals. Go to millionairehairstylistpodcast.com and sign up today. So tell us what organizational design is.
Organizational design, as an industry term, just refers to how you've structured the people, the roles, and departments within your business to operate efficiently, cost efficiently, and to maximize the results of the business as quickly and as effectively as possible, right? So if you have a business, you probably have a goal. And one of the main goals in that business should be making money. And so everyone knows that they only have 24 hours in the day. And if you want to scale beyond yourself, or eventually even get to the point of owning a self-scaling business, you're going to need people. And it's sort of cliche to talk about this these days. I feel like when it comes to people being the most important asset in a business, I think it's all something we know. We know that that's true. People are the most important aspect of your business. And if you don't have the right people, then you have the wrong people and your business is doomed for some trouble, right? Where organizational design should have come in my businesses, and I wish it did, and going forward it always will, is that we start with the end in mind. So now, instead of building a business reactively, I have 2 versions of my org chart. And an org chart is just something that visually represents the chain of command in your business. And if you don't like the word chain of command, you can use the accountability stack. So who is accountable to who in this business, and who's responsible for leading these people to perform? For example, in a salon, you might have an owner, a manager, and a staff of 2, a hairstylist, right? That might be a small example. You might have a tattoo shop of 3 tattoo artists, and a manager and an owner, something like that. Inevitably, the people that work there are going to have someone to go to, and someone to learn from, and someone to ask questions to, and someone to cut them their paychecks. And so all these things, each person that comes on represents more work. There's more nurturing that needs to be done there, more development, more meetings and things like that. So what I do now is I make an org chart of where I am and where I want to be. And I do that in a way that gives me a clear vision of who my next hires are going to be. And then in that org chart, I will identify those roles that I think are going to be very necessary for me to take the business to the next stage that I want to take it to. And you could go to extremes with this, and I don't think you need to, but I do think you need to have a multi-year vision for what this org chart is going to look like. And as you grow as an entrepreneur, this exercise becomes more easy because you'll be more acquainted with what sophisticated and organized businesses look like, and what departments can look like, and things like that. If you're a small business and you don't have departments, then it might be pretty easy to just put down that you need an assistant. Maybe that's one thing. You need someone to take off the administrative work. Maybe you'll need an apprentice. Maybe an apprentice is someone that you want to have on your staff so that they can sort of maybe take over some of your clients as a service provider at a certain point. Maybe you'll want a CPA or a bookkeeper, which is not a maybe. You'll absolutely want that. And so you'll want to start looking at, well, who am I going to need next in the business to help me take it to the next level, rather than I'm going to try this, I'll do this strategy, and I'll do this strategy, and then it starts working, and you get too many clients, and the quality of your service starts to degrade, and you can't handle them, and your communication lowers, and you start losing clients.
Reactive versus proactive.
Yeah. So this is, well, the way I think of organizational design now is just be proactive in thinking about who you will need on your team, and you are very unlikely to get this right perfectly, but I've found that we can get pretty close.
It's better to have a plan. It's better to have thought this through at some level.
That's right. Yeah.
Than to just be like, oh my gosh, I'm overwhelmed. We had a conversation once. I can't remember who this was with, Cash, but we had a conversation with someone who said something like, I just work until I'm so overwhelmed that I have a mental breakdown and then I make big changes to my company.
Yeah.
And I was just like,
I'll bet your employees love that.
I'll pass on that.
Yes.
For me personally. Let's avoid that.
Yeah, that's not my style. I as a leader in my business, I'm a sailor, and I love sailing. And what I love more than sailing is taking people sailing, and having people on the boat for the first time is an amazing experience. And they're very nervous about the boat leaning over and, the wind picking up and things shaking and, because sailing is not all wine and cheese. Sometimes it can be. But when you really get full sail and you got some gusts of wind, it can be a little alarming or a little scary for first timers, waves crashing over the bow and all that kind of stuff. If I showed franticness on that boat, or if I showed disorganization and inability to run those sheets, to put the sails in the right position, to keep the boat headed in the right direction so it doesn't tip over, and I was just all over the place, they would pick up that energy and they would also become frantic and disorganized, not know where to sit, not know if they should be talking or, and everyone becomes insecure and unsure of what to do next because they don't know what's going to happen next. So what I like to do is I like to lead from a position of competence and confidence and clarity. I like to know where we're going, and I like to be able to communicate that to my team. And with an org chart, I can say, hey, let's say like, Olivia, you are in this role right now. I love that you are so skilled in this. I think you have natural ability for leadership. I can walk around and plant that seed in people in my businesses. And then as they develop, I can go, gosh, we've been talking about your leadership for so long. I'd love to put you over over this team. I'd love to put you over that team. I'd love to see you thriving and promoted to the next position because I really feel like you've developed and honed your skills in this. And I think you do really well over here.
Remember Nicole Cumberlander, one of our guests here on the podcast? She talked about the person that now runs her salon schools and runs the whole operation, started at the bottom and said, Nicole, I want to do what you do. Someone expressed that interest. And she said, great, started them at the front desk and then built them all the way up to the point where they are running the whole business.
I think it's really important to lead your business with a vision and with a plan. And however imperfect that plan is, I think your team will appreciate it, that they want to be on a train that they know where it's going. In general, right? It's like if we're going to California, not into the middle of the Pacific Ocean. They just want to know where are we trying to get? Is there a destination? What's the destination? What am I a part of? Am I proud to be a part of that? Am I excited to be on the train for where we're going? And if you aren't clear on that, you will likely, and I almost guarantee it, you'll have a very high turnover rate in your business. People don't stay on trains; they don't know where they're going.
So, we could dive into a million subsets of this conversation. Maybe we should on other episodes, Cash, of this podcast. But it's important to point out the principle that you're articulating here, which is even if it's an imperfect organizational plan, start building an organizational plan. Start thinking about what your business would look like if it grew. What would it be like if I had 300 customers instead of 30? What would it look like if I had 2 locations instead of 1? That's an important thing to do. But here's where I can imagine a lot of people say, Cash, I just started my business. I'm a solopreneur. I just started in this industry. People are at various stages of their development and they may not know what the future is supposed to look like. So how do you And I, there was a time before you knew what the structure was going to look like in, let's say, use it as an example, your real estate company. So how do you start to build a plan for something that you're new at, or something that you're still learning about what it should even look like? Where do you go to get inspiration for that? As
a business leader, you should always be learning, one. So I had to learn about these things, and I learned about them from seminars and courses and books and mentors and teachers. And I've invested hundreds of thousands of dollars into my education. And I continue to do that every single year. Just hired another coach for $50,000. And I think when you're lost, learn. It's an incredible lesson I had to pick up a long time ago, because there's many seasons in my business that I've been in where I didn't know what to do next, and I couldn't confidently decide, like, well, I think I've done everything. I'm trying everything. I just don't know what to do. And rather than being like, oh, I'm just going to wait for somebody to tell me what to do, or wait for some epiphany, or just keep doing what I'm doing and hope that grows in a linear manner, I've always wanted exponential growth. And what that took was going and learning and from the people that have done these types of things before, and studying and getting better. And just by listening to podcasts like this, I think you're on the right track of just putting these things on the forefront of your mind, like thinking about them even is beneficial. Keeping organizational design on your mind even, because what happens is as you build your business, you're going to start thinking, gosh, there's a lot of people reporting to me. Do I want 50 people reporting to me with their problems?
Right. Just play the imagination out in your head. Okay, what if I had 10 of these things that are texting me, calling me, it's easy to imagine.
And never refer to your employees as these things. I don't think that'll go very far with them. I'm imagining an all AI future, by the way. I'm referencing the AIs that will check in with you. Yeah, exactly. That's what I'm being. Actually, this is very modern and post-human of me, is what I'm. Let's have an AI discussion on our weird theories of where industries are going with AI. I would love to do that.
Definitely.
Finish some interesting literature on AI.
Just so everyone knows, we drink first, podcast second. That's how it works here. In the
This is us drinking.
Yeah, seriously. This is what Cash and I are the obnoxious kind of people that if you get us into a dinner table at a nice restaurant, somebody else is having a conversation about, I don't know, a sports team or whether or not they're going to go see Taylor Swift. And Cash and I are going, okay, yeah, but if you use an org chart, how do you visualize the responsibilities?
True nerds.
Humor aside, Cash, this is an important point that you're bringing up, which is, okay, you just started your business. You're not entirely clear what it would look like to have 30 people in the business and what all those people would be doing. Somebody knows.
Yeah.
Another business owner who's agreed to meet with you for coffee and has taken a liking to what you're doing, is willing to invest in you and give them their time. We talk a lot about mentors. A coach who you can hire. How much is it worth to you to spend money on someone? $1,000, $5,000, maybe it's $20,000. It all depends on what you're going to get back for it. How much is it worth to you to shortcut a year of mistakes, 2 years of mistakes, 3 years of mistakes? Cash, how much time have you saved? How much money have you made by investing in education that got you faster to a destination you wanted to get to? And the last thing is like money for coaches. The internet is free, and there is a lot of information you can find. Your eyeballs, you own them. You can go around and look at how other businesses run. You can ask questions of people. So that's not an excuse. Oh, I don't really know what it's going to look like in 3 years, so I'm not sure. And like you said, Cash, it doesn't have to be a perfect plan either. The goal here is not to build a roadmap that's going to get you exactly where you want to go. The goal is have a roadmap. What's it going to look like when I have 1 person, 2 people, 3 people, 4 people, 5 locations, 6 locations? Like thinking about that now, so that you have a mindset that is built on top of an organizational design that you've even roughly drafted, that you refine over time, that allows you to build a business that, coming full circle to where I started this conversation, can help you avoid, maybe you've already had at least one moment of burnout. I think everyone's going to have at least one, but maybe avoid that second one or that third one, or maybe it helps you avoid that final moment of burnout where you're ready to close up shop, where this isn't working for you anymore. That is avoidable if you have this mindset, if you have this approach that says an organizational system is something I will start thinking about from day one, if possible.
Yeah. And business is never just like a straight curve upward, right? That's not how it works. There's going to be setbacks. You're going to have to lose people. You're going to have to take on tasks that you had already delegated. People get sick. I have employees who've sadly gotten diseases and have had to leave the job, and I've had people relocate and have to leave the company. And there's all kinds of reasons that stuff may fall back. And that's why I personally, I like the organizational model that we use, which is, Coco and I are sort of vision casters for the business. And we cast that vision with the utmost clarity, as much clarity as we possibly can of where we're going. And we meet with our COO, and whether you have a COO or not, this could be your assistant that you're meeting with. You don't need a COO. It could be the same person, like just someone who can be that catch-all for you. And then that person can either take the tasks that need to be done and execute them, or if you have a larger business where you have more people involved, that person can go and talk to the other leaders in the business and say, here's where we are, here's where we're going next, here's the team that we need to hire in this area of the business, so that you're not doing everything. And I like having that stopgap. There's only one person that reports directly to me. Everyone else is optional, and there will be one more person that reports to me. So our COO reports to me, and when we hire our marketing director, which we're actively hiring right now, so if you know of any phenomenal marketing people, please send them my way. We're interviewing. Those two people are
a phenomenal marketing person.
If you are a phenomenal marketing person.
This is your sign from God.
Yes. Those two people are going to report to me. Why? Because those are my two core competencies. I understand marketing really well, and I understand team building and vision casting really well. So I can kind of, my skill set is just sort of like seeing what the opportunity is, and then quickly designing the people, the strategies for how we could execute that, and then communicating that vision. Don't ask me to get started or do that anymore. It's not going to happen. It's not possible. I don't have there's not enough time on the calendar to start these things or be doing as much as I used to. When it comes to marketing, I'll be reviewing. I just have a dashboard basically for each company, and I look at the KPIs. And when someone takes over, I'll continue to look at those KPIs. And when they're off, we'll meet. And we'll dive into problem solving until that person is, one, better than me and producing better results than the benchmark in the company, or there's new advertising things that need to be discovered, new tests that need to be done, and that person will be conducting those. So I start now with organizational design in mind before I execute or take action on a strategy. Even if I have no one to, but one person, hey, I need this done. I needed a huge project involving a tax assessment of properties recently. And I had never done that before. I had never done this particular thing, and it's a lot of work, and it takes several months. And so I gave that to a person, our property manager in the company, and she's doing it. And I still don't know how to do it. And it's getting done, but then I am
it's
reviewing.
Like a minor entrepreneurial small business miracle, as far as I'm concerned.
In this case, it was a great hire. My personal assistant is phenomenal. I'll be very sad if she ever leaves, but we even have a strategy for her role. Currently, she's moving into taking over a department temporarily. She's going to move into that department. She's going to build that out, and then she's going to step back out and say, what next? So that is, and that's a great person to have. My wife has that personality. Coco's very much like, give me anything. Don't ask me to come up with it, but just give me anything. Right. And so that type of person is great for just infiltrating things that need to be done that you don't know how to do. And the way that those are monitored in our business is we have morning meetings daily. So we have morning meeting check-in. What are the emails I need to know about? We have a list of questions that we go through, and that's a whole nother episode of working with an assistant.
For sure. But to bring this full circle, Cash, it's burnout can be avoided. It starts with having an organizational model that you're willing to implement or start thinking about from day one. It does not have to be perfect. There are people that can guide you towards building what that should look like from multiple points of input, whether it's coaches, mentors, YouTube videos, books. And if you can build a mindset that says, I will build the organizational model, or I will start to build out what I think it's going to look like from day one, you have a much higher likelihood of success as a business owner.
Without burnout.
If you're a hairstylist, if you're a creative professional, and you are interested in your financial well-being, remember to like and subscribe so that more episodes just like this one show up in your YouTube feed.